Let's hit the high road. Let's hit the high road. It's the first touch, strong connection. It lays deep in your soul. Feel the kindness strongly coming. 'Cause you can achieve your goal. Let's hit the high road. Let's hit the high road.
Hi, this is Nancy Yeareld, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And all the way from the UK, I have Alan Heeks here. He's written a cool book, and welcome to the High Road.
Well, really pleased to be with you, Nancy.
I am happy you're here. This is cool, you guys. It's called Natural Happiness, and it's use organic gardening skills to cultivate yourself. And what we're going to be talking about today is let me just preface this with saying natural happiness can help you dig deep and stay cheerful in these stormy times. It shows how you can use gardening methods such as compassing, I can't talk today, mulching and crop rotation to cultivate human nature. So this is going to be a really fun show. And I grew up on a farm. I grew up on 100 acres and we used to plant gardens. And I love this because this is like getting back to basics. And we're going to talk about how it relates to us and how we relate to the earth. And I just think it's really cool that you put this together. Very quickly, you guys, I need to talk about what's happening. First of all, I want to say it's Memorial Weekend. And if you don't know what Memorial Weekend means to us here, a lot of people think it's a big party, but I want to remind everybody here in the United States what it's about. So I just pulled up Wikipedia, and it is a federal holiday, you guys. It's on Monday, but it's honoring and mourning the U.S. military personnel who died while serving in the United States Armed Forces. And I want to remind everybody of this, that we do have Memorial Day for this reason. We observe. Many people visit cemeteries, memorials. Memorial Day is to honor and mourn those who have died serving. And this is in the Navy, in the Army, in the Marines, it's all aspects of the military. And I just want to kind of give you a little history. This started back in May 30th of 1868. So we've been doing this for a long time. So as the whole United States travels to celebrate the holiday, I thought I would bring it back and just remind everybody why we do celebrate this holiday. Do you know anything about this over in the UK? Do you hear about us doing this?
To be honest, we don't. I did live in the States for 2 years and loved it, so I'm sort of familiar with some of the American holidays. Thanksgiving, for example, is amazing, but we don't have anything like it over here. And same
Oh,
with
man.
Memorial Day. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, and I wanted to bring that up. I also want to mention that my angel class is up on my website, how to connect with your guardian angel, how to connect with God source, and how to connect with the earth energy. So this is kind of going right along with Alan's book. That's what I'm teaching as well. And so I'm really interested in what you have to say about the earth energies. And just so people will get out there and take the class, I'm offering the first chapter free. So go to my website, nancyyearout.com, and you can check that out. So I just want to kind of give everybody a little heads up because I'm only going to do this for like 30 days and then it's going back to no more freebies. So free for 30 days. Check out my angel class. All right, now let's talk about Alan's book here. First of all, I want to say I read your story, but I want you to tell the audience. Back in the 90s, you were in a successful career in business management and you said, okay, I'm going to start an organic farm. Tell us your story. What happened?
Well, so I was a pretty high-flying professional manager. I have a Harvard MBA. I trained in marketing, Procter and Gamble. I was like a blue chip marketing management guy, trained to make things happen, take control, and all the rest of it. And I did that really pretty well and successfully through my 20s and 30s. And by the time I got to 40, I was getting burned out, but also getting I was getting really quite disillusioned with the whole world of business. So, there I was getting restless and out of nowhere, this idea came: you should start an organic farm. And I thought, this is ridiculous. Why me? You know, it's like, I mean, it's a brilliant idea. And the idea wasn't just to start a farm as such. It was to start this farm to help young people to find their kind of roots as they try to make sense of adult life. You know,
Right.
I've got two lovely daughters, and at that time they were about 12 and 14. So I
Okay.
remember thinking, it's a terrible thing to try and make sense of adult life in these days, and all that's gotten a lot worse.
Right.
So, you know, I was really motivated about doing something for young people as well as doing something for the land. So I thought, great idea. But anyway, the idea wouldn't go away. So in the end, I thought, I've really had it with the business world. So I dropped out of my business career, gave back my company, Jaguar, and started an organic farm. Um, and it was a massive shock. You know, I was used to making things happen, taking control. And I had this lovely farm manager, Peter. And one day he said to me, look, Alan, you need to realize that an organic farm is like driving a tractor without a steering wheel. He
Okay.
said, you know, you can't make anything happen on an organic farm. You
Okay.
have to really observe the reality of the situation. And the best you can do is kind of nudge the situation the way that you want. And that's completely different than sort of intensive chemical farming, where you can impose your will on the land. You know, you can force something to grow. You can use chemical pesticides and herbicides to suppress the problems. But, you know, we also know that all of that carries a massive consequence in terms of
So,
the earth being polluted.
yeah, so let me interject here. So what I'm getting
Yeah.
from this is the earth has its own energy. It has its own intelligence. And that's what organic
Yes,
farming is, isn't it?
that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, the other, and I think that the joke in this for me, it's what I call a cosmic joke, was there I was, you know, eagerly setting up this education center for young people, not realizing that I had a huge need of education
Yeah,
myself.
I
So
love it.
there I was, slowly adjusting to this idea of, you know, steering and dancing instead of imposing and controlling.
Right.
And I was spending half my time setting up this organic farm and, you know, non-profit, and the other half of my time I was working with big corporates doing programs on change management and leadership and, you know, empowerment. And literally it took 7 years before I had this light bulb moment where I said, hang on, the organic farm is the model I need for the corporate clients. And it was ridiculous. I thought, why did it take me 7 years to get to this? And I think the answer was that I really needed to get it from the roots up, you know, not superficially.
Right.
I kind of really knew about organics after 7 years of it.
Yeah.
So I then started to bring some of these corporates down to the farm, and they loved it.
Oh,
I said,
really?
oh yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I said,
cool.
look, the reality is that you are managing huge levels of uncertainty. The idea that you can take control of your situation is just not realistic. And they all nodded. And I said, so let's go around the farm. And I'd give them a guided walk and show them how we did this on the farm. And I'd come out and say, well, now tell me, you know, this is a system that's working with, you know, uncertain resources to produce the best result you can. Tell me about the inputs and the process and the outputs. And they were really eloquent. They talked about patience and observation and humility. And I thought, these are corporate managers. You know, this is kind of like really human values coming into the
Nice.
business world.
Right. Very nice.
Yeah,
Wow. That is so cool. I love it. I love it. Well,
yeah,
seven's a holy number, so I'll just say that. So I'm not
yeah,
I'm into numerology, so I'm not surprised
yeah,
by the 7 years. And you also say seven seeds of natural happiness.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in essence, one of the things I think is good about the book is that I didn't just sit down and write it. I wrote it after many years of using these ideas with a whole load of different groups. You know, I was working with corporates. I've worked
Mhm.
with kind of, you know, some young people who had mental health problems. Um, and I've done some lovely work with doctors in the National Health Service, who are one of the most stressed up groups I know anywhere in Britain. I mean, you know, literally physically rigid with stress when they arrive.
Yeah.
And you know, I figure if this can help them, it can frankly help anyone.
Yeah.
So what I gradually did was articulate the ideas as the seven seeds of natural happiness.
Well, you did a case study that I wrote down with Lizzie. It's a short one. You do workshops. I don't know if you still do them, but she was
Yeah,
complaining about burnout. And I really
yeah,
loved your analogy of this. Do you mind sharing it? Is that okay yeah?
not at all. No.
Okay. Yeah. Because it was so cool how you described it, because you do talk in the book about communicating with the trees. And that's something, you talk about tree talk. And
Yes.
that's something I wanted to touch on as well. But
Yeah.
but Lizzie came and she was feeling like the world was on her shoulders, is from what I
Mm.
recall from the story. And what you talked about, and I'll just bring it to your attention and to the audience attention, is that I love this. You said her roots weren't strong enough to hold all
Mm.
this stuff. And it
Yeah.
made so much sense because we're like trees and we
Yeah.
have to root down because I tell everybody to ground, right? To ground
Yeah.
into the earth. But then if you got too much up here, then you're top heavy and you start to topple over.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the other ways I look at this book, Nancy, is that it's a self-help book for people who are allergic to self-help books.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of people say, I don't want any of this kind of fluffy woo-woo stuff. You know,
Yeah.
I'm
It's
I'm
not
a
fluffy.
realist. No, this is so unfluffy. You know, it's literally down to earth, back to the roots. And the tree talk in the first chapter is one of my favorite things. It's one of the exercises I would do very early in most workshops. And it's obviously better to do this with a real tree, but I've done this in, cities in an indoor room and asked
Can you
people to
teach us?
imagine it.
Can you teach us? Will you do
I
it?
could take us through it. If
All
if
right,
if
let's
you're all
do
right
it.
for a few minutes, then let's go for it. Love
Yeah, for
to.
sure. For sure.
Okay,
All right.
lovely. So take probably helps to close your eyes if that's okay.
Okay.
And take a few long, deep breaths and just particularly push the breath out. Really relax, settle into your seat. If you've got any anxious thoughts buzzing around your mind, any kind of little aches and pains in your body, just try and let it all go. Just relax as fully as you can. Now, I invite you to imagine that you're out of doors with a tree. This might be an actual tree that you know and like and relate to, or just imagine a tree that you'd like to be with. So picture this tree. Imagine standing back and looking up at it and admiring it. And now I invite you to make some physical contact with the tree. You might like to hug it. You might like to kind of just stand with your back to it. You could imagine you're sitting at the foot of it, but really feel you're in physical contact with the strength and the kind of warmth and friendship of this tree that you're with. Imagine yourself feeling the bark of the tree, smelling the fresh outdoors, and maybe this is a tree that's got, scent or pine aroma or whatever. But, take this tree in with all your senses. Now start to imagine that you yourself are a tree. Imagine that you have roots just like the tree that you're with. So picture your roots spreading out into the earth under your feet. And the roots of a tree have two main jobs. They gather up resources from the earth to nourish the tree, and they also give the tree stability. So the reason that the trees don't usually blow down in high winds is because the roots grip out into the tree and spread out around the trunk of the tree. So I'd like you to just get a sense of whether your root system is big enough to give you all of the nourishment you need and all of the stability that you need.
I feel my root system expanding.
Great. Well, that's really good. So now bring your attention up to the trunk of your tree. Feel the trunk of the real tree behind you and just think about what a trunk does for a tree. It has to be both strong and flexible. If it was absolutely rigid, the tree would actually snap in high winds. And if it was too flexible, it would just bend right over and collapse. So think about your trunk and whether your trunk has the right balance of strength and flexibility. So now bring your attention up to your branches. Imagine that high up above your head, you have a branch system spreading out into the sky. Might be that, we're in May or June, August. Imagine you've got leaves on your branches and try and picture whether you've got fruits or nuts or blossoms or berries. What kind of fruit are you giving out? And imagine that your branches are where you give something out to the world. And just check out, does your branch system feel like it's the right size? Could it be bigger, or is it a little bit overextended? And are you happy with the kind of fruits and blossoms or whatever it is that you're giving out to the world?
This is great. I've got apples on my tree.
Good. They're looking good. So now I'm going to ask you to bring it all together, and particularly I'd like you to look at the balance between your roots and your branches.
Mm.
If we're talking about a real apple tree in a garden, what a gardener knows is if the roots and the branches are out of balance, there's two things you can do. One is you can nourish the roots so that you expand the root network and you feed it some more. And the other is that you can prune the branches. And
Mm.
maybe you could do a bit of both. But if you feel like you might be a bit overextended, then I invite you to think whether you can nourish your roots some more and also whether you might want to prune back some of your branches if they're overextended.
Mm.
And then very gently give thanks to this tree that you've imagined being with, or maybe it's a real tree, and just let your eyes open when you're ready, and we'll carry forward from here.
That was lovely.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah,
It
I
seems to work
really,
every time. There you go.
I love it.
Even on a video call.
Well, I'm in the Tonto Forest. You don't know that. And
Ah,
I'm up in the middle of the Tonto Forest, and we have these gigantic trees, and right outside my door, are these beautiful trees. And so, yeah, I just visualized one of those. But yeah, I got a lot out of that. I'm sure the audience did too. But as a participant that's here with you, I'll tell you that. Um, yeah, I felt like my root system wasn't large enough, and it was like, as soon as you said that, it just started to expand. It's interesting. And
well, that's
then
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, and then the other thing was the fruit immediately. That was the other thing that really came through for
Mm,
me was apples, like,
yeah.
giving people, that's beautiful. And, that's helpful to people because what I got out of it too is it shows you how to achieve balance.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. And I mean, the other kind of secret agenda in the book, which I'll share with you, is what I found over here was during the COVID time, a lot of people got outdoors more. So it's like, you say to people, well, getting out of doors is good for your well-being. Just about everybody would say, yeah, sure. But what the book's trying to do is to help people engage much more deeply with nature and
Right.
realize that, nature is an incredible teacher for human nature as well.
Well, it really is. And you talk about co-creating in the garden with your wife, Linda, and how you guys have this 1 acre garden in West Dorset and how it's really changed your life, how you spend so much time out there. But I
Yeah.
just want to reiterate that yes, being out in nature changes you
Yeah.
for the better,
Yeah.
for the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of information in here, you guys. You talk about the diamond process. I thought I would just, if it's okay, I'll just mention a few of these.
Please
You guys
do. That'd be
Yeah, you
great.
guys are gonna have to pick up the book, but the first is intent. It's planting the seeds, which I agree with wholeheartedly. And then you talk about exploration, like aim beyond your comfort zone. And I think that's where everybody gets stuck.
Mm.
They're afraid to move past that comfort zone.
Yes. Yeah.
And I can
Yeah.
understand that too. I've just been doing some public speaking and I was afraid, but I did it anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can get that. And the third is creative confusion, the tension, because if you don't do it, then you're like, oh, I really want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll you do the next one. And so then the last ones are
Well, let's say with the creative confusion, because I really love this, and what I
okay,
find increasingly is that
okay.
there's something kind of like some kind of alchemy that goes on. If you can feel the confusion, like if you feel it, say in your heart, that confusion, which might be painful, is somehow bringing your intuition and your inspiration and your subconscious into action.
Mm.
You know, what I find is that most people find uncertainty very uncomfortable. So we
Well,
tend to kind of get out of it as fast as we can. And what that usually means, we use our left brain, you know, our rational brain, to think our way through to a very quick solution. And usually that quick solution is actually a little bit superficial and it's not going to really take root. So what I find amazing about this, and you know, I do it a lot myself and I've seen it work for other people, is that if you can hold the confusion, even if it's painful, somehow that is what engages deeper faculties. So that's the creative confusion isn't just about confusion. It actually has a purpose because that pulls you through to the aha. And what I also say in the book is, you know, whereas we like to get to a solution quickly if we're in uncertainty, don't rush it. You know, do the first stage of the process, but then go for a long walk, have a bath, listen to some music, something that kind of you stop pushing, you stop trying, and that gives space for the inspiration and the intuition to bubble up. And
mm.
I love it. It's like, you know, I go for a walk, really worried about something, and after, you know, 20 minutes, something happens. I think, hang on, that's what I've been looking for. And it just happened to me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's
Yeah.
going within. We're so
Yeah.
used to, like you said, looking for a solution on the outside instead of going inside.
Yeah.
And what I really pick up on the tension, it's the feeling. We have to feel the feeling, even though we don't want to. If we
Yes.
can work through that feeling, this is what I've learned. Even though you don't
Yeah.
want to work through that feeling, if you can, then you can release and move forward. I feel like a lot of people get stuck because they get stuck in that tension. Do you know what I mean?
Well, exactly. And I think what I'm trying to urge people in the book is, you know, people kind of shy away from tension. And I'm saying actually face into it, because
Yeah.
if you can face into it, then you're going to grow through it.
Right, exactly. Wow, really awesome.
Okay.
I really like how you talk about, and I'm skipping around here a lot, but you talk about
Yep.
community, and I want to talk about this because I'm
Mm.
really, and I don't want to get onto a tangent, but our food supply is not good right now. And it's gotten really, really bad. In fact, it's
Yeah.
gotten to the point where I'm reading the backs, and my daughter and I'm all different people I know are reading the backs of the ingredients, and we're seeing that there are manufactured material in our food. It's not real. It's being
Yeah.
manufactured. And so what I see a lot of too, you talk about this, are community farms, community
Mm.
forests, community
Yeah.
gardens, these type of things. And I feel this, and I'll let you expand upon it. I just feel like each community needs its own garden. If you don't have the
Yeah.
room in your backyard, if you do, go for it. But if you don't, community gardens is the way to go. Our food supply is really contaminated. Our water
Yeah.
is contaminated,
Yeah.
So I'll just like,
Well, I think food is a massive issue. You know, frankly, it's one of the things that I think is most worrying in our world at the moment. It's not only the contamination, it's just the supply. You know, this is one of the biggest impacts that's already happening around climate change is massive crop failures all over the place. Um, and I think the other issue here is I've thought a lot about community, and I think that the society we're in has kind of like eroded the quality of community over the last 30 years. You know, it's all about individuals and little households.
me, me,
And I
me.
think, yeah, and it's absolutely me.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
what's sad is it's like people have literally lost the skills of community. You can't just click your fingers and make it happen. There are real skills about how you express difficult feelings, how you hear them, how you resolve conflict. And I've in the book's not a long book, but what I've got in there is some good websites and resources. So if people say, "Wow, that's absolutely right," the pointers are in there.
Mhm.
So, and one of the things I really love about community from organic systems is certainly in Britain, if you want to be certified as an organic farm, you have to create what are called wild margins. What that means is that in your fields, you don't just plough up to the very edge of all the fields. You leave a margin, like a gap around the edge of the field where you leave it wild. So you've got wildflowers, wild grasses,
Oh,
and that's a
nice.
home for, you know, butterflies, insects, and so on. And,
Nice.
and firstly, it's about maintaining biodiversity. But secondly, what you hope is that if your crop hits a problem, then the predator or the antidote to your problem is in the wild margins. And I think this is a really powerful idea for human communities. Because what I see with a lot of human communities is that we tend to sort of hang out with people who agree with us. So you find that a lot of communities, they're very much one person like another. Um, and that actually what they really need to do is to expand to include people who are a bit of a maverick, who are a bit cranky, who don't express themselves politely and diplomatically. Say, that's rubbish. We should be doing something completely different. Those are the people we need to challenge us. And
Mhm.
and as we hit bigger and bigger problems, you need people who think differently in order to get you through the problems. So I that's one of my favorite lessons from, organic cultivation about human communities.
Mhm. Well, it's camaraderie and it's coming
Mm,
together and it's a whole thing. And I won't get this is a whole another show, but
yeah,
with government and the people not jiving with the governments in the world
yeah,
today,
yeah.
it's imperative. This is what I feel that communities come together. We're going to
Yeah.
have to and work together. I really feel it may come to a point where we have to grow our own food in our own community and
Well,
support
I think
ourselves.
so. I
I
mean,
really
the other
do.
thing,
You
the
think
other
that
thing that,
too, Ellen?
yeah,
You really
but
do.
also one of the things I've really seen over quite a few years is that gardening together as a community is one of the best ways of rebuilding communities.
Hmm.
There are some lovely examples in inner cities in the US. I visited a wonderful community garden in the Bronx, and I know there are others in Oakland and Baltimore and so on. But actually, this whole thing about how you rebuild community when people don't quite have the social skills, the
Right.
answer is if you rebuild it around growing your food together, it's an absolutely wonderful way of starting to bring people of all generations in, people who may not communicate very diplomatically. So I think it's not only really important in terms of keeping food on our plates, but actually it's a really great way to rebuild a community in a bigger sense.
Yeah, Trump was in the Bronx yesterday, and he's the first president who's ever visited the Bronx.
You're kidding. That is
No,
incredible.
that was
Really?
it. You got to check it out when we get off the show. You'll have to read about
I
it.
will. That is amazing.
There were thousands of people who showed up for
Right.
President Trump yesterday. Um,
Okay.
yeah, just because of this kind of thing we're talking about right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Community, bringing people together, what's really important, and you're
Yeah.
right, it's our food supply. Because what we put in our body is who we are.
Yes. Yeah.
And, it really is, you are what you eat. They used to say that when I was a kid, my mom, oh, you are
Yeah.
what you eat. It's so true. And
Yeah.
it's gotten to a point, and I want to ask you a question. You're going to probably think this is a
Yeah.
little off the wall, but I have some strawberries growing here outside. I'm in Arizona, so I'm able to grow them here already. But when you go to the grocery store, they're gigantic
Yeah.
and they're not the same.
Mm.
And no manufacturer, I'm not bringing up anything like that, but it's just like, wait a minute. If I go outside and I pick my strawberries and they're this size and they're sweet and they're fabulous, and then I go to
Yeah.
the grocery store and they're gigantic, something had to been done to that strawberry to get it to that point. Or am
Mm.
I just not seeing big strawberries and you grow them organically and I'm missing something here? Help me out with this.
Well, no, to me, this is absolutely about transitioning chemical farming and organic farming.
Okay.
I think about it in terms of apples. You can get some lovely big apples that may look okay, and you bite into them, and it's just watery.
Right. They're
Um,
awful.
yeah, like your strawberries. And then,
Yeah.
I'll buy an organic apple, and it may be smaller, and it might be a little bit wrinkled, but it tastes different. It tastes better. To me, it's a really good illustration that organic systems have genuine quality.
Yeah,
And it's because they're not using chemicals. I think it's also about the fact that those crops are grown with love.
exactly.
The strawberries come out of an industrial system.
Yeah,
Um, I know people who've worked on, industrial scale dairy farm, and it's absolutely inhuman. The treatment of the animals is inhuman, the treatment of the people is inhuman.
well, yeah,
Whereas organic systems, the people in them are human people putting love into the food you're eating. And I think that's the other thing you're feeling in your strawberries. You grew them with
absolutely.
love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I just will tell you this, as I've gotten older, and it could be an age thing, which I'm sure it is, but I'm very sensitive because I watch what I eat. So if I eat something that has a lot of preservatives, I immediately am ill. And so
Yeah.
what's happened is I've gotten my body to the point, I'm sure you're the same way. You really
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
watch, like you can't go
Yeah.
out to eat everywhere because you don't know what they're putting
Yes.
in the food. And when you get to a point where you're really taking care of yourself and you're paying attention, you have to continue to eat well because if you don't, it's a problem. And then
Yeah.
you can tell like right away that something's not good. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, the upside of it is that I think probably you and I are both doing extremely well for whatever age we are. We're
Right,
healthy, we've
right.
got good longevity. So there's a real payback to
There
kind of looking
is.
after yourself. Yeah.
There is. Yeah,
Yeah.
you say there's a spiritual ecology. And I want to talk really quick before we get out of here. We only have a few more minutes. We've been on for a
Yeah.
while. We got a late start, but I want to talk about the earth. And the reason I bring this up, well, you talk about it in your book, and I was so grateful. You talk about the angels, which is so nice. And
Yeah.
I teach people how to connect with the angels, but I also teach people how to connect with the earth. And I'll just say this, and I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
The reason I do it is because people don't want to be here, so they got to be grounded in order to be present. But the other thing that I've realized is the energy of the earth, because the earth is changing right now and we're changing energetically. So the more we go out and we stand on the earth and the more we connect, we are connecting to that energy. And as it shifts, we shift. And it's
Yeah.
an easier shift is what I'm feeling about this. So I want to know what you think about this.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I mean, I believe that, there's a divine energy in everything, in the earth, in the trees, in the plants, in the animals, in the humans. And that we're all going through this together. I mean, one of the best spiritual teachers I follow is Thomas Berry. Um, wrote this lovely book called The Dream of the Earth. And
Yeah.
there are quotes from it in the book. But
Yeah, I wrote one down
basically,
actually. Oh my
he's a
God.
really wonderful, wise elder who died, I don't know, 15 years ago. But he says, despite all the crisis that we're in, I'm basically hopeful. And I'm hopeful because the earth has an intelligence of its own. And if the earth has let us get into this crisis, the earth knows how to get through it, but it can only do it with us. And we humans can only do it with the earth. So the more physical contact we have with the earth, the better. It's like, we have to hear it, and it needs to kind of guide us. So
It's a
yeah, I think
connection.
it's very crucial.
Yeah, well, I wrote this down. Yeah, he says, Thomas Berry says we need to feel for nature the love like the love a mother feels for a child.
Mm, yeah.
And that's true. I don't know. I'll just say this really quickly. I feel like, I'm go out, but I'm a different kind of a bird. I go out and I look at the animals and I'm grateful and I love the trees and the whole bit. But some people don't. Some people don't even care or don't even look or don't even pay attention. But I
Yeah.
feel like I want to know what you think. I feel like our world is shifting where people are starting to realize. What do you think?
Well, I think some people are. I think one of the things I find quite alarming in the world at the moment is quite a lot of polarization.
Hmm.
And people getting increasingly passionate about a view over here and a view
Right.
over here.
Right.
So I see a kind of a growing number of people who have the kind of awareness that we're talking about, but I also see a huge number of people who just can't cope with this. And it's a bit like the climate crisis. I think I find it very sad that most people just find the whole climate crisis overwhelming. They don't know how to engage with it. So they just kind of carry on with life as usual. even though logically they might accept that it's not sustainable.
Well,
So yeah.
you're probably not going to like what I have to say on the climate. I think the Earth has always gone through climate changes. I think we are going through a change right now, which I think is just a normal change. You know, as we evolve, the Earth evolves, and so you're going to see changes. But I don't buy into the whole global warming thing. So that's just, I'll just say that, let that go.
All right. Well, we'll have to agree to disagree there because I
Yeah.
think it's definitely happening.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes, we will. Well, listen, we got to get out of here for today.
Yeah.
What would you like to leave us with? You know, what a fabulous book. I will say it came out in March, Natural Happiness, you guys.
Yeah.
What would you like to leave the audience with today?
I think I'd like to leave you with the idea of composting. So
Okay.
I think composting is miraculous. You know, in our garden, we're putting our garden waste and our food waste and bits of old cardboard and newspaper in the compost bin. And like, you know, 2 months later, we've got this sweet smelling stuff that helps the plants to grow. And I think there's a very powerful parallel here but for humans. So what I say in my workshops, I say, you know, think about the kind of negative feelings that you're carrying around in yourself, or think about the anxious thoughts that won't go away, and think about how much energy you're using up just pushing them away. And it's a little bit like we're talking about with that idea of facing into things with the diamond process. I say, you know, if you can turn that around and face into your difficulties and compost them, there's actually a lot of positive energy that you can extract from them. And in the
Right.
book, I've got some simple ways of doing that: breathing exercises, moving exercise, and so on. So I'd like to leave people with the idea that, you know, if you're struggling with something difficult, there is a different way through it. You can compost your problems.
Yeah. Well, we're here to learn and we can look at it maybe differently. That's wonderful advice. Thank you. Alan Heeks, you guys. Do you have a website, Alan?
Absolutely. So it's www.naturalhappiness.net. Very simple.
Naturalhappiness.net. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
And guys, before we get out of here, remember to pick up my book, Wake Up, The Universe is Speaking to You. I just relaunched it on Amazon. Hey, my new book's coming out in December, A Guide to Angel Communication Using Spiritual Laws. So we're going to have pre-orders pretty soon. So I'm pretty excited about that. I hope everybody has a fabulous holiday weekend. I wish everyone well and God bless.